Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we are covering the Indian history, like we had started the ancient India, we had completed the two parts of it. Then we had started the medieval India, we have completed the both part of it. And now in this series, we are going to start with the modern India. Okay. So basically, as we know, the history is divided into the three senses, the ancient, medieval, and modern. Similarly, the history of India has been divided in the same, like ancient, medieval, and the modern. So now we are going to talk about the modern because we have completed the first two, ancient and the medieval. So when we talk about the modern India, basically these are the topics that we have scheduled for the discussion. Starting with the introduction, like what is the introduction of the modern India and all, and the facts and figures in the starting. Thereafter, advent of the Europeans. Okay. Thereafter, Governor Generals of Bengal. Thereafter, Governor Generals of India. And thereafter, Viceroy of India. Okay. So basically, these are the topics that we had scheduled for the discussion. Basically, before starting this lecture, there is a small disclaimer which we should understand first, then we should move. So the disclaimer is, the images used in a slide deck are for educational purposes only. We respect the intellectual property rights of the original creators and the owners of these images. If you are the owner of any of the images used in this deck and have any concerns or issues, please contact us at sathee@iitk.ac.in and we shall remove the images. Okay. So now let's begin with the lecture. So first of all, there is an introduction. So before the beginning of formal rule of British in India, like we know, whenever we talk about the modern India, the first thing that comes in our mind is that British India or the British colonial period. Okay. And why it is so? Because if we talk about this, the Britishers ruled India for more than 200 years. And because of this large span of ruling, they had made a significant changes in Indian economy, in Indian administration, in Indian military and all. Okay. Also, their work has been continued by some of the departments of government of India still after independence. So now you can see, because the Britishers having a great influence on India because of their ruling history and all. So that's why whenever we talk about whenever we talk about modern India, then first thing that comes in our mind is about the British India. But if we're talking about this in the proper sense, then even before the British India or the beginning of formal rule of British in India, there were in total 5 European companies which established their trading centers at various locations in India. It means that Britishers starting the formal rule in India many years after they had established their factory for trading. Like we know, the Britishers came to India mainly for trade. Later on, for their greater benefit, they had established their rule. So when they had come as the traders, on the same time, many other European companies or European countries also had their presence in India. Okay. And if we talk about them, then the first one were the Portuguese. The first one were the Portuguese. Okay. They were the first to come to India for the trade. Okay. And Vasco da Gama, if we talk about it. So Vasco da Gama was the person who was in charge of the expedition to India by the Portugal or the Portuguese. Okay. He first reached Cape Town in South Africa. Later on, he got accompanied by the merchants of Gujarat. Okay. And that's how he reached port of Calicut in the Kerala state of today's India. When he reached there, he was received by King Zamorian. Okay, the King Zamorian was the Hindu ruler of Calicut, Kerala. And from King Zamorian, he succeeded to got an permit of establishing the factories and the trading center from the Portuguese East India Company's side. Okay, so Portuguese initially settled down as in traders. Later on, they established their settlements at Daman, Salsette, Chaul, Bombay, and sent home near Madras and at Hooghly also. Okay. After the Portuguese, the next one were Dutch. Okay. So the Dutch East India Company was basically formed in 1602 AD. Okay. These were the one. Before starting this line, let me tell you several things about Dutch. When Dutch came to India, what was their main significance was that prior to them the Portuguese were there, and after spreading their you can say rule and the administration in the southern and the central part of India, they had got into the good terms of the Mughal rulers also. And we know the Mughals had the largest empire in the country on that time. Okay, so from Mughals, they had gotten help for their trade and all. And Portuguese established themselves as the single trading power of Europe that was trading in India. Dutch basically got succeeded in replacing the Portuguese as the main European trading power and established themselves on place of Portuguese. But after the Dutch, when the English or the Britishers came to India, then the Britishers were in the same mood to establish themselves as the main European trading partner. And that's why they had got in conflict with the Dutch, and somehow they managed to defeat the Dutch at the famous Battle of Bedara in 1759 AD. And after this battle, there was an agreement signed between the Dutch and the English. As per the agreement, the Dutch get and full control in Indonesia. The Britishers moved out from there, and Britishers got full control in India, Sri Lanka, and Malaya, and the Dutch moved out from that place. Okay, so that was the agreement that happened between these two. After this, let's have a look at the trading of Dutch. The Dutch set up first factory at Masulipatam in 1605. There, other factories were at Pulicat, Chinsura, Patna, Balasore, Nagapattam, Cochin, Surat, Karaikal, and Kasim Bazar. All right. After this, the Britishers. Also, they are called the English. Okay. If we talk about this, the English East India Company was formed in 1599 or 99, you can say 1599. Okay. English East India Company. Under a charter that was granted by Queen Elizabeth in 1600. Okay. And when they came to India, so basically for the first time from the British side, Captain William Hawkins, who was the officer of English East India Company, he came to India and met the Mughal Emperor Jahangir. Okay. And he proposed that the Britishers wanted to do a trade with India, and basically they had a place, Surat. They wanted to start a trade from Surat. Jahangir, after seeing their offer and the proposal, just gave them a simple condition. Because as I had told you, the Mughals and the Portuguese were in the good terms on that time. So Jahangir asked the Captain William Hawkins or the Britishers to remove Portuguese from the Surat, and then he will allow them to establish their factory at Surat. The Britishers somehow managed to move out Portuguese from that place, and they established their own factory at Surat in 1630. Thereafter, in 1615, Sir Thomas Roy came to India and he succeeded in granting an imperial order to trade and establish factory in all parts of the Mughal Empire by ruler Jahangir. Okay. So like we can say, when there was a Captain William Hawkins. Okay. So William Hawkins just succeeded to get a permission to establish a factory at Surat in 1630. Okay. And after removing the Portuguese from there, they somehow managed to start trading here. But Sir Thomas Roy, okay, he was the ambassador to the Jahangir from the British ruler, and he succeeded in obtaining the orders from Jahangir that now the Britishers were allowed to trade and establish their factories in all the parts of the Mughal Empire and all the Indian territories that were under the Mughal Empire. Okay. Thereafter, in 1690, a factory was first established at Sultanati by Jeb Charnock. Okay. Thereafter, in 1698, the zamindari of three villages, Sultanati, Kalikata, and Govindapur. Sultanati, Kalikata, and Govindapur. The zamindari of these three villages was acquired by the Britishers, and that ultimately paved a way for the foundation of city Kolkata. That is present-day capital of West Bengal. Okay. And before Delhi, that was the capital of India. Okay. So we can say the city of Kolkata was basically found by the Britishers by merging the three villages, Sultanati, Kalikata, or Govindapur. Okay. Thereafter, in 1700, Fort William was set up in Kolkata. Okay. Shah Alam II, who was the Mughal ruler of that time, he granted Diwani, or you can say the revenue collection rights of Bihar, Bengal, and Odisha to the Britishers. That basically established the Britishers as an important economical and financial power in India. In 1770, John Sherman obtained a permit from Farooq Shiar. From Farooq Shiar, he was also the Mughal ruler. Okay. And this permit gave large concession to the company. Okay. And that's why it is also famously called as Farooq Shiar Farman of the company. Because through this, basically the Farooq Shiar granted a large number of concession or the important concession to the Britishers that ultimately paved the way for their rule establishment in India as we know. Then Battle of Plassey 1757 was fought wherein the English defeated the Sirajuddaula. He was the Nawab of Bengal. Okay. So basically we talk about him. So Sirajuddaula was the grandson of Ali Vardi Khan. Ali Vardi Khan was the independent Nawab of Bengal. Previously, he was under the Mughal. Later on, he, you can say, revolted against them and he occupied the Nawabi of Bengal fully. Sirajuddaula was his grandson, and basically, Sirajuddaula initially led the Britishers, came to Bengal and established their trading centers. But later on, due to some conflicts, the Sirajuddaula expelled out the Britishers from the Bengal area. In response of this, the Britishers launched an attack against the Sirajuddaula, where the Sirajuddaula responded to it, and that is famously known as the Battle of Plassey 1757. But somehow the Sirajuddaula did not win and got defeated by the Britishers. And here the Britishers occupied the Bengal. Thereafter, Battle of Buxar 1764. So, during this battle, Captain Munro was fighting from the British side and defeated the joint forces of Mir Qasim. He was the puppet Nawab of Bengal, put on throne by the Britishers. Soja Uddola, he was the Nawab of Awadh, and Shah Alam II, he was the emperor or the Mughal emperor. Okay, do not mix Rajuddaulah, who was the Nawab of Bengal, with the Soja-Daulah, who was the Nawab of Awadh. Okay, thereafter, the Danes. The Danish East India Company was formed in 1616, and the Danish colony Train-Cubar was established on southern Coromandel coast of India. Okay. Thereafter, the French. The French East India Company was formed by Colbert under the state patronage in 1664. The first French factory in India was established at Surat by Francois Caron in 1668. A factory at Masulipatam was set up in 1669, and French were defeated by English in Battle of Vandewash 1760. Got it? After the advent of Europeans, like how did they come? Okay, how did they organize themselves? What areas they had occupied and all. Now we have to discuss about the Governor Generals of Bengal. Okay, Governor Generals of Bengal. So during 1773 to 1828 AD, okay, there were the position created called as Governor Generals of Bengal, because the Bengal was the first area that gone under the hands of the Britishers, first in the Battle of Plassey, supplemented by the Battle of Buxar. If we talk about them, the first one was the Warren Hastings. Okay, so if we're talking about the Warren Hastings, remember the Warren Hastings was the first Governor General of Bengal. Okay, he was appointed from 1772 to 1985. Okay, some of the important events that took place during his tenures were: the first one was abolition of dual government. What was that? Like basically after occupying the Bengal, okay, the Britishers did not want to participate in the administration. Okay, they only took control over the revenue collection. So that's how the dual government formed in Bengal. Local rulers were in charge of maintaining the administration, and the Britishers were in charge of collecting the revenue and all. Okay, so during the Regulating Act 1773, Warren Hastings became a Governor General of Bengal, and he ended the dual government. It means now the Britishers had the control of administration and the revenue both. And then he introduced coined essential settlement of land revenue in 1772. Also, the Asiatic Society of Bengal in 1784 was founded. Okay, and the famous personality of that was Charles Wilkins. He translated Bhagavad Gita into English, okay, in 1785. Thereafter, Warren Hastings started the Diwani and Fauzdari Adalat at the district level. The Diwani Adalat was in charge of civil court, and the Fauzdari Adalat was in charge of criminal court. He fought Rohilla War 1774, First Anglo-Maratha War 1776 to 82, and Second Anglo-Maratha War 1780 to 1804. Okay. After him, there is a Lord Cornwallis. If we talk about him, then Lord Cornwallis introduced the permanent setup in Bengal and Bihar, okay, for the revenue collection. He is also called the father of civil services in India because he introduced the two types of civil services, the covenanted and uncovenanted. In the covenanted civil services, basically, the Britishers could only be appointed as an officer. And in incovenanted services, basically the Indians were allowed to be appointed. The coordinated services were for the higher standards and for the higher post. Uncoordinated services were for the lower standards and for the lower post. He also introduced the judicial reforms because he separated revenue administration from the judicial administration. Okay. After the Cornwallis comes Sir John Shore. Okay. He played an important role in the introduction of permanent settlement. Okay. That was introduced by the Cornwallis, but later on carried out effectively by the Sir John Shore. During his tenure, the Battle of Kharda took place between the Nizams and the Marathas in 1795. Then comes the Lord Wellesley. Lord Wellesley basically introduced the Subsidiary Alliance 1798. It means Subsidiary Alliance means that if any local ruler conferred the authority to the Britishers and became their subordinate, okay, then the Britishers will protect the territory from the outsiders. In response of this, the ruler who had submitted his territory to the Britishers is required to pay some amount to the Britishers. The British forces would be stationed in their territory, and the ruler is not allowed to deal with any other European without the permission of the company. The first alliance that was signed, this subsidiary alliance, was the Nizams of Hyderabad. After the Nizams of Hyderabad, that was followed by the Mysore, then the Tanjore, then the Awadh, and then the Peshwa or the Maratha Confederacy. Okay, and in the Marathas, mainly were the Bhosle and the Scindias. During his tenure, the Treaty of Bassein 1802 was signed and the Second Maratha War took place. After them comes the Lord Minto first. So Lord Minto first concluded the Treaty of Amritsar with Maharaja Ranjit Singh in 1809. And also the Charter Act of 1830 was passed during his time. Then comes the Lord Hastings. Remember, Lord Hastings is different from Lord Warren Hastings. Okay. He became the Governor General in 1813 AD, and his region saw the establishment of Ryotwadi system in 1820 that was introduced and implemented by Sir Thomas Roy. In Ryotwadi system, basically the Britishers directly collected the tax from the peasants or the farmers instead of making the zamindar as the mediator between them. All right. Then comes the Lord William Bentinck, and now we have started the Governor Generals of India. Like previously, we had discussed about the Governor Generals of Bengal. It means that only the Bengal territory was main administrative center of the Britishers. Later on, the Britishers shifted to the other parts also, and that's why they modified the further created position of Governor Generals of Bengal into the Governor Generals of India. And the first Governor General of India was Lord William Bentinck. And he was made a Governor General from the Act of 1833, Indian Charter Act. Before him, the designation given was Governor General of Bengal, and when the Charter Act was passed, his designation was improved to the Governor General of India. He carried out social reforms like the prohibition of sati and elimination of thugs. On Macaulay's recommendation, he made the English as a medium of higher education, and also he suppressed the female infanticide and the child sacrifices. After him comes the Lord Hardinge. During his tenure, the first Anglo-Sikh War commenced from 1845 to 46, and the Treaty of Lahore from 1846 took place. He gave preference to English educated persons in employment so that the language of English could be promoted. Thereafter comes the Lord Dalhousie. So basically, he introduced an annexion of Satra, Jaipur, Sambalpur, Udaipur, Jhansi, Nagpur, Awadh, and he annexed them on account of the maladministration. He laid down the train line between the Bombay and Thane, telegraph line between Kolkata and Agra, and first issue of the Indian stamp in Karachi in 1854 with the Post Office Act. He passed the main force being the Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar, and he started the public services and Grand Trunk Road work and developed harbour of Karachi, Bombay and Kolkata. He passed Charter Act 1853, which included selection to civil services through the competitive exam. He started engineering college at Roorkee and made the Shimla a summer capital. After this comes the Lord Canning. He was the last Governor General and was the first Viceroy. He withdrew the doctrine of lapse, on which the areas were annexed by Lord Dalhousie on account of maladministration and not on the natural hire. During this tenure, revolt of 1857 took place and Indian Penal Code 1860 was passed. He passed the Act 1858, which ended the rule of the English East India Company, and during his tenure, the University of Kolkata, Bombay and Madras were established in 1857. Thereafter comes the Lord Mayo. He organizes the Statistical Survey of India, and for the first time in Indian history, a census was held in 1871. Thereafter, he started the process of financial decentralization in India and established the Department of Agriculture and Commerce. Then comes the Lord Lytton. So, he was also known as the Viceroy of reverse character, and he passed an assumption of the title of Empress of India by Queen Victoria. The Delhi Darbar in January 1877 was organized during his reign. He also passed Arms Act, that is also called as Gagging Act, to restrain the circulation of printed matter, and the Vernacular Press Act, which made it mandatory for Indians to acquire license in arms of 1878, that was also passed during his time. Thereafter, the Lord Ripon. He passed First Factory Act of 1881 that prohibited the labor and introduced the local self-government in 1882. He repealed the Vernacular Press Act in 1882 and finances of the center were divided. He is regarded as the founding father of local self-government in India also. Then comes the Lord Lansdowne. During his tenure, Lord Ripon granted weekly holiday and stipulated working hours for women and children. In his tenure, civil services were divided into the imperial, provincial and subordinate services. He passed Indian Councils Act of 1892. During his tenure, the Durand Line defined line between the British India and Afghanistan, and now this line is between Pakistan and Afghanistan in 1893. Lord Curzon. During his tenure, a commission was appointed under Sir William Hunter in 1902 to suggest reforms regarding the university, and as per the reforms and the recommendations, the Indian University Act was passed on the basis of its recommendation. And he passed Ancient Monuments Preservation Act of 1904. Thus, the Archaeological Survey of India was established. Agriculture Research Institute was established at Pusa in Delhi. And during his tenure, the Bengal was partitioned in 1905 into West Bengal and East Bengal. West Bengal nowadays is with India, and East Bengal nowadays known as Bangladesh. Thereafter, the Lord Minto. During the tenure of Lord Minto, many events took place such as foundation of Muslim League 1906, Surat Split 1907, and Morley Minto Reforms 1909. Lord Hadding. During his tenure, several events took place such as annulment of the partition of Bengal 1911, transfer capital from Kolkata to Delhi 1911, Delhi Darbar and coronation of King George V and Queen Mary in 1911. Then comes the Lord Chelmsford. The important events during his tenure including the Lucknow Pet 1916, Khilafat movement, emergence of Gandhi as a national leader, passing of Raleigh Act, Jallianwala Bagh tragedy, and Montagu Challenge from Reform 1919. Thereafter comes the Lord Irwin. During his tenure, Simon Commission visited India in 1927. Events that took place during his times were Congress passed the Indian Solution in 1929, Dandi March happened, and Civil Disobedience Movement 1930 took place during his time. During his tenure, the Round Table Conference was held in England in 1930. Gandhi-Irwin Pact was signed, and Lahore session of Congress and AIIC session 1925 took place. Lord Willingdon. During his tenure, the second Round Table Conference in London happened, and the third Round Table Conference also happened. Government of India Act 1935 was passed. Communal Law Act 1932 assigned seats to the different religious communities on the basis of their caste, and Gandhiji went on a effect fast to protest against this division. Then comes the Lord Wavell. During his tenure, cabinet mission came to India. First meeting of Constituent Assembly was held. He arranged the Shimla Conference. That was the failure of the International Congress and the Muslim League because they could not combine together. And during his tenure, election to the Constituent Assembly were held and an interim government was appointed under Nehru. Lord Mountbatten. He was last Governor General of India, and partition of India decided by the British Parliament, and our 3rd June plan or Mountbatten plan was there. He retired in June 1948, succeeded by C. Rajagopalachari, the first and the last Indian Governor General of Free India. The Indian Independence Act was passed by the British Parliament on 4th July 1947, by which India became independent on 15th August 1947. At that time, the British Emperor was King George VI. Okay. So students, basically in this lecture, we have finished several topics of the modern India. In next lecture, we will start with another important topics. Till then, just revise some facts and figures. Okay. And thank you.